Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and this is my review for Outlander Season 1, Episode 3, The Way Out, and I obviously was really looking forward to this episode, and again, this episode once again did not disappoint. It really did. It was another great episode. I love this episode, thought it was absolutely fantastic, just loved everything about this episode, really was into it the entire time. Everything was just really interesting this episode. There are a lot of things I definitely do want to talk about this episode, though, I actually read somewhere some people are thinking that Outlander is the new Game of Thrones. I'd have to agree with them, definitely. Outlander is definitely a lot like Game of Thrones if you think about it. Like, the characters are very much the same, the way the show is done is very much the same, very much like Game of Thrones, definitely. Not the 40s aspect of it and the war aspect, but, like, the way the characters are portrayed and things like that very much reminds me of Game of Thrones. But let's just jump into this episode, because overall, I really enjoyed it. Now, of course, if you guys don't remember, quick little recap from last week. Claire is trying to leave, she's trying to leave Castle Laoghoire, she's trying to find a way out, and she can't because basically, Colin made that deal with her that if she can't leave, she can't leave because if she tries to leave, she's gonna get killed or whatever, or tortured, and, that's basically what she said. She made that deal with him. So yeah, now let's just get into this episode. Basically, we see a flashback to Claire and Frank at a train station. I like this flashback. I like seeing this flashback because it showed us, what her life was like before. And basically, we see Claire is actually leaving Frank first, and Frank talks about Claire's stubbornness and their obvious affection for each other. It continues to build onto the reason that Claire wants to go back to her own time. That's really what that shows. That scene was definitely very big, though, and I thought it was definitely a very good scene. And then we flash forward to Castle Laoghoire, and Claire is getting washed and dressed by Mrs. Fitz in her despair, and she confesses to Mrs. Fitz that she's come from the future. Mrs. Fitz is talking to her about everything, and I'm like to Claire, this is not going to end well, because Mrs. Fitz ends up going crazy, and ends up, getting slapped in the face. But it turns out it's only a daydream. It's actually just a daydream. She didn't actually tell her. It was a daydream. And she's actually moved into the beaten cellar and is cleaning the house, because she has a lot of things to do. She's cleaning the house, she's seeing patients, and she still has Angus and Rupert hanging around and keeping an eye on her. Because if she tries to leave, she knows what's going to happen to her. So basically, she is there to be the nurse, and she gets this news of a boy's death after he visited the Black Kirk. And it's assumed his death had to do with demons and the devil. Now, that's very strange, so Claire thinks otherwise, and Colin's pageboy and Mrs. Fitz's nephew, Tamis, comes to fetch Claire for Colin. So she enters Colin, but before entering Colin's room, she witnesses an argument between a tailor and Colin. Now, the tailor has made his coat too long, probably trying to get Colin to hide his deformed legs. So Colin takes offensive and proceeds to scare the life out of the tailor, and he's a very proud man despite his difficulties, and Colin then asks Claire to massage his legs like the last beaten did, and she becomes a little bit uncomfortable because he's basically naked from the waist down. I don't blame Claire, definitely. That's definitely, not something you'd want to do. So she massaged his lower spine, and, basically, she's massaging him and everything. And because of the relief she's given him, she is now in his favor and is invited to listen to, Gwilyn the Bard play in the hall, and, so she's invited to that. So she is still drinking Colin's Rhenish with Flora. She sits down next to, Laoghoire. I think that's how you pronounce her name. I don't remember how to pronounce her name. I think it's Laoghoire or something like that. Laoghoire, that's how you pronounce her name. And Jaime arrives, and she leaves space for him to sit between her and Laoghoire. Now, if you remember, Laoghoire was the girl that Jaime ended up defending last week. He got into that fight over it, over that fight in the court. He got into that, there was that court thing over it. So, Claire wants them to officially meet, and she's really pushing for them to get together because he really thinks that, he cares about her. However, Jaime doesn't act like, he doesn't seem to actually care about her, which really makes me think he likes Claire. Definitely, they're really pushing the whole Jaime-Claire situation. Definitely, I think they're gonna get together, definitely. They're really trying to push it, and I definitely feel there's gonna happen, especially because of that scene. because he asks Claire to look at his bandage since it's bothering him, and she's pretty tipsy because, she's had a lot to drink, and they reach her cellar, and some flirting occurs, side glances, as she checks his wounds, and at this point, even though she's a bit drunk, there is definitely a spark between them. Every time they have a scene together on this show, you want to get them to get together. That's just the thing with this show, is that every time they have a scene, you want them together. I don't know what it is that they do, but somehow, whenever they have a scene on this show, you want them together. It's weird, yes, but it's the truth. Every time they have a scene on this show, you just want them together. I think it's just, the two of them just work so well together, in my opinion. They are very well together. Both actors, both actors have very good, chemistry, definitely. And, yeah, they just have very good chemistry, in my opinion. I really don't know what it is. They just have very good chemistry, and everyone just really wants them together. Probably because of the books. Again, I have not read the books, which honestly is the best thing to do. You know, basically, I think it's the best thing to do for them to, for me not to read the books, because I don't want to know what else happens. Because I've heard this show is actually pretty faithful to the books. That's the other reason why people are calling it the next Game of Thrones, because you guys know Game of Thrones are very much like the books. So Claire then sees Jaime kissing Laoghoire in an alcove, and Jaime is clearly seeing Claire and vice versa. And Claire teases Jaime at dinner that night about the tryst, and this leaves Jaime kind of embarrassed. And then we see Murtaugh is on to Claire. He warns her in so many words to not encourage them. Everything has seemed to be fun for Claire, but Murtaugh is on to her still. This has all been fun and games for her. The burgeoning relationship between Jaime and Laoghoire reminds her of her husband and her task to get back to Frank, because even though she's loving it here, her thing is that she needs to get back to Frank. That's why this episode is called The Way Out. She's trying to find a way to get back to him. So Dougal sees her crying and offers to take her to Geillis' house in the morning. And Dougal is not kind to Claire, but there are glimpses of, I think this was, we actually saw him be kind to her right here, definitely. I thought it was sweet that he did that. He's not really been kind to her before, but in this scene, he was actually very kind to her, surprisingly, and I wasn't expecting that, definitely. I was not expecting that at all. So she travels to Geillis' house to stock up on medicinal herbs from her well-stocked attic, and it's the attic that she sees a young tanner's lad accusing of stealing, coming to meet his fate at the Fishgul's house. Now, the thought that he may lose a hand makes Claire ask Geillis if there's a punishment more lenient for the boy, the Fishgul himself. So, Arthur Duncan arrives in the attic for some indigestion medicine from Geillis, and she persuades him to be easy on the boy, and then the Fishgul passes a punishment of the lad's ear being nailed to the pillory from 1 hour. Oh my god. I mean, if I even thought of that, I thought about in that scene, definitely, what would happen if I had to go through that? Oh my god, that would not be fun at all. Just have your ear stuck to the pillory, it would not really be fun, and yeah, definitely, that would just be very graphic, in my opinion. Definitely, that would not be fun at all. Having my ear, stuck to the pillory would not be fun at all. So, that scene, though, was definitely very intense, and I really did, enjoy that scene. I didn't enjoy it. It was very graphic, but, definitely very well done. So, it's stuck to the pillory for 1 hour, and then we see Friar Bane is there to execute the punishment, and as the day carries on, it's time to leave Geillis' house, and Claire's, the boy, and, Claire is surprised that the boy is still there, because Jaime has come to fetch her, and she carries out a plan with Jaime to get the boy away from the pillory fast with a distraction, because she doesn't want him to suffer. She really doesn't want him to suffer, but the thing is, that was how they dealt with things back then. That's what Claire doesn't understand, is that that's really how they dealt with things back then. They knew what they were doing, but Claire just doesn't really want this boy to suffer anymore. She doesn't want him to suffer. She doesn't think it's the right thing for him to suffer, and she just doesn't want him to suffer anymore. She really doesn't. So, basically she causes a distraction, and Jaime and Claire end up visiting the Black Clerk, and Claire learns about the area and why boys come here to play and prove their manhood. Now, it's almost like a dare of sorts, because Jaime points out that the wood garlic he has eaten before. Now, the only problem is that it's the lily of the valley, and it's poisonous. It's poisonous. So Claire guesses that Tamis has eaten this plant and made himself ill. So she gives him a treatment, hoping it will work, and it does, because, the whole episode is her trying to figure out what to do to Tamis, and she then figures out how to cure him, basically. She finds out, she figures out how to cure him right here, and, basically, she knows how to cure him, and it seems like everything's okay, and she gives him a treatment, hoping it will work, and it does. It ends up working. The only problem is, though, that Friar Bane has been cast aside to perform the treatment, and he probably holds a big grudge against Claire now, because she was not the one that was supposed to, perform the treatment. He probably holds this grudge against her now, because he was the one that was supposed to perform it. She wasn't. And, yeah, so that's definitely very interesting. So then the episode ends in the hall with Gwaylin performing, and Claire finds comfort in the Rhenish again. She sits next to Jaime, and she's sad, but the translations by Jaime of what Gwaylin is singing give her hope that she can actually return to Frank, and she must do it soon. So that's why this episode was called The Way Out, and, yeah, so that was, basically the episode, and let me just say, this episode was quite different from the first two of Outlander. It felt like a story completely separate, definitely very different from the last two episodes. The last two episodes have very much been a mystery story, and this episode was definitely more, I say, it was definitely different from the first two episodes. I mean, the first two episodes were very more character episodes, it was more setting up the story, and now that we know the story a little bit more, we found out we had some side character moments, we had more with, Claire and the doctors, and I thought that was good. I like seeing that, definitely. The scene at the pillory was definitely very hard to watch. Now, there is the whole thing with the supposed demon possession of the two boys in the village. One passed away, the other's in the cusp of joining him, and, apparently that's different from the book, now if you're a non-book original, and apparently, Friar Bane is introduced earlier in the story, and apparently I'm reading this on this recap I'm reading, if you find out what happens and you haven't read, the books, don't look up what part he plays, because it's a huge spoiler, and, this episode just felt like definitely very different from the last two. It just felt more like less of a mystery story and felt more of it wasn't filler. I don't want to say filler. That's not the word here, because this episode was not filler. What it was it did give us, and it didn't give us really a lot of answers. However, it did provide a lot here. I'm wondering if Jaime and what, I can't remember her name now, Jaime and Laoghoire, if they're going to somehow start a relationship, if something's going to happen between them, I'm very interested in seeing if something's going to happen between them. I don't know. We're going to have to see what happens there. I'm very interested in that, definitely. Now, I'm trying to remember if anything else happened. Now, by the way, I was very upset with Claire in the beginning of the episode when she told Mrs. Fitz the truth. I really hope she doesn't do that in real life, because that's not going to be a good thing at all. Now, of course, Laoghoire, I feel bad for Laoghoire. All she's trying to do is get Jaime to notice her constantly, and she's quickly learning that whether Claire intends or not, Jaime has no interest in her. So I'm wondering if something's going to happen. Definitely Laoghoire seems to be very jealous of Claire, so there's definitely going to be a lot of tension between them, definitely. We see a lot going on there, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I really like this friendship between Claire and Galus as well. I like seeing that, We actually found out something else about Galus. Claire learns that Galus is actually quite good at manipulating her husband. She also gets a lesson from Galus on what local justice is about when Galus advised her not to cross the town pastor. Now, Galus seems to be a fairly fearless woman and one who speaks her mind, but even she does not want to cross the pastor. Additionally, she has picked up on Claire seeming not to understand commonplace 18th century customs. So that was definitely very interesting. So, also with Mrs. Fitz, I'm wondering if she actually is going to tell Mrs. Fitz the truth. Claire did clearly come up in the eyes of curing her nephew, and it's obvious she's definitely an enemy of the local pastor, because he was definitely supposed to do that, and he didn't. So, I'm wondering if Claire is going to find a way out of here. By the way, guys, I'm so happy about this. Outlander was renewed for a season 2, which definitely it does deserve. After 3 episodes, I'm pretty hooked on this show. I think this is definitely a very good show, in my opinion. And one of the things that I definitely feel the show is doing right is, as I said, it is very accurate to the books, apparently. I haven't read the books, so I wouldn't know that. Don't tell me anything that happens in the books that hasn't happened in the show, because I don't want to be spoiled. Really, I don't. But I really love this episode. Thought it was really, really well done. My other question is Claire going to try to make an escape attempt? I'm wondering if she's going to. We're going to have to see what happens there, definitely. What do you guys think of the flashback? I thought the flashback was well done. It really showed her missing Frank. I'm interested in seeing if she's actually going to, tell Mrs. Fitz the truth. That's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens there. Murtaugh's on to Claire, definitely. He does not trust Claire right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. You still have that whole, we think Claire is an English spy thing going on. We still have that going on, and it's gonna be interesting to see definitely what ends up happening there. But that's basically it for my review. Let me know what you guys saw of this episode. Overall, I love this episode. Thought it was probably the best episode of the season so far. Really loved it. Looking forward to the next episode. Let me know what you guys thought. Did they change anything from the books? What do you guys think of the whole Claire and what do you guys think of the whole Laoghoire and Jaime storyline? Do you think Laoghoire and Jaime? Do you think there's going to be something going on with them? Interested in seeing if there's going to be. But that's in my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys in my next video, which will be for my review either of another movie review or for the series finale of True Blood, which I'm looking forward to. So I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.